3 bone-chilling true home intrusion tales that haunted me at 3 a.m., you won't believe what happened. The clock ticked mercilessly towards that witching hour when nightmares crept from the shadows. The deep silence of the night felt heavy, wrapping around Morgan like a shroud. Each breath felt like a tremor, every creak of the floor echoing like a warning. Alone in her dimly lit apartment, she couldn't shake the gnawing feeling of being watched. Was it just her imagination? Or was something lurking right outside her door? It all started with the frantic barking of her neighbor's dog, a slurred bellow that pierced through the eerie calm like a siren in the dark. The sound sent chills skittering down her spine. Animals had a knack for sensing danger, right? That thought gripped her tight, squeezing until her chest felt tight and her throat constricted. Suddenly, she remembered the news she had seen earlier that evening. Unexpected home invasions had swept through their neighborhood like a sinister fog. As her heart pounded, beating louder than thunder, she jumped at the faint sound, a whisper, a raspy scratch at her window. Her eyes widened. What could it be? A vandal? A desperate thief? The shadows thickened around her, shifting under the moonlight that slinked through the blinds, casting dancing silhouettes that seemed to taunt her reason. She cautiously tiptoed to the window, heart racing, and pressed her forehead against the cool glass. What she saw would haunt her for nights to come, a figure cloaked in darkness, eyes glimmering like shards of glass, staring back at her. Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Those eyes pierced right through her. Time seemed to freeze, her breath hitching as the figure took a step forward, pressing against her glass. It felt as if the world was holding its breath, the air turned thick with dread. Just then, she heard an ominous click like the turning of a key in the lock. Panic surged like a wildfire in her veins. Had it opened? What if she wasn't alone after all? As her mind raced, she backed away from the window, clutching her phone, fingers trembling like leaves in the wind. Would she call for help? Was she overreacting? But what if she wasn't? In that moment, the reality of the strange whispers and the shadowy figure gnawed at her sanity. The truth loomed larger. The night was no longer just quiet, it was terrifying. She could feel the shadows closing in, thick and heavy. What would she do next? Would she brave a call to the police? Or was it too late? The thought spun in a whirlwind as every nerve in her body screamed for action, every creaking floorboard a reminder that the nightmare was far from over. In that pulse-pounding moment, Morgan could only wonder, what awaited her just outside that door? The silence was deafening now. Morgan felt her heart drop into her stomach. She turned towards the door, every instinct screaming at her to move. But where could she go? The room, once a safe haven, now felt like a prison. Click. Another sound, this time louder. The lock. Had it been unlocked? A wave of dread washed over her, making the hairs stand up on the back of her neck. She pressed herself against the wall, her fingers digging into her phone. Should she call 911? No, she couldn't make a sound. The walls felt like they were closing in, the shadows mocking her every hesitation. As she held her breath, she thought back to her own naivete. Friends had warned her about the unpredictable dangers lurking in the night, but she never believed anything would happen to her. The quiet life she loved had turned into a terrifying nightmare all in the blink of an eye. Would she ever feel safe in her own home again? Suddenly, there was a thud. A deep, heavy sound that resonated through her bones. It came from the hallway just outside her apartment. Was someone approaching? The tension was unbearable, it stretched taut like a tightrope. She shifted her weight, the creak of the floorboards betraying her fragile position. The thud came again, closer this time. Morgan's breath hitched. Desperation fueled an instinctive reaction. She dashed to her kitchen, eyes darting around for anything she could use as a weapon. A knife? A bottle? Nothing felt tangible enough to provide her with a sense of safety. Each second blurred into the next as she wrestled with her panicked thoughts. Should she lock the door? It was already too late, wasn't it? Then, the sound of footsteps. Heavy and deliberate, like the echo of a grim promise. They paused, right outside her door. Morgan swallowed hard, forcing herself to stay silent, praying that whoever it was would just move on. The handle jiggled. Her heart raced. Every muscle in her body tensed and coiled tighter with primal fear. Would it burst open? Would that figure come crashing through? And just when she thought time had stopped, the footsteps retreated. She strained to listen, hoping against hope that she'd imagined it all. But then came the unmistakable sound of breathing, a low, raspy inhale, as if someone was drawing the very air from her space. Who was there? With a flick of courage, she crept towards the door, pressing her ear against the wood. The pulse of her heartbeat drowned out every other sound. Had the air changed? Was it heavier? The world felt so still, every sense heightened, as if the night could spring to life and devour her whole. Then she heard it soft, almost a whisper but distinctly male. "Morgan, I can smell your fear." A chill swept through her, ice-cold fingers brushing against her spine. She backed away instinctively, her mind racing with possibilities. That voice belonged to no one she knew. The exhilaration of terror saturated her whole being. Just then, she heard the unmistakable sound of glass breaking, a loud crash that shattered the silence, deep in the depths of her apartment. Morgan felt the ground give way beneath her. What was she supposed to do now? How would she face this predator? The air felt charged as panic squeezed her lungs. She had only one choice. She had to confront the darkness that had invaded her sanctuary. With her heart in her throat, she steeled herself. Was this a fight for survival or a dance with death? As she steeled herself to face whatever awaited her, she couldn't shake the statement from echoing inside her mind. Did she truly know what fear looked like? Morgan's feet felt like lead as she hesitated before the kitchen door, the world outside her body fading into a blur. She couldn't process the chaos unfolding around her. The only clarity in the madness was the need to act. Gathering all her courage, she snatched a sturdy knife from the drawer, its surface reflecting a glimmer of hope against the darkness. With the weapon clutched tightly in her trembling hand, she approached the living room. Each step felt weighted, as though the air itself was pushing back against her resolve. She knew she had to face whatever monstrosity awaited her, but the instinct to hide clawed at her insides. She paused, listening as the sound of shattering glass echoed ominously through the apartment, leaving an unsettling emptiness in its wake. What had happened? Did the intruder break something? Or had they entered fully, no longer caring for subtlety? Her mind reeled with possibilities, each darker than the last. "I can smell it," the voice slithered through her thoughts, taunting her. It was a reminder that someone had crossed the threshold of her safety. Taking a deep breath, she edged into the room, the shadows creeping closer as if they had eyes and were watching. She flicked on the kitchen light, illuminating the space in front of her but dousing her in dread. The sounds of her own rapid breaths reverberated against the walls like a countdown. Then, she spotted it. The shattered remains of her favorite vase lay splintered across the floor, but the source of distress was not the damage itself, it was the dark smear across the floor that told a chilling story. Was it blood? Her thoughts raced. Did this figure come to harm her? What was their purpose? Adrenaline surged through her veins, prompting her to inch forward despite the instinct to run. "Why are you doing this?" she called out, her voice shaky yet defiant. She gripped the knife tightly, the cold steel grounding her chaotic thoughts. No response came, only the heavy silence that threatened to suffocate her, stretching endlessly into the dark. her heart thumped louder as she dared to move further into the room. She could make out a slight shift in the far corner, camouflaged by the shadows. Was someone lurking there, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? The cold knot of fear whispered to her to turn back, but deep down she knew she had no choice. She had to know. With a fierce resolve, she dropped to her knees, scanning the cluttered space for any sign of movement. The dim light barely penetrated the corners, leaving more questions than answers. Was it hiding, waiting to pounce? Suddenly, an unmistakable creak echoed from behind her, and she froze. The breath she held caught in her throat. There it was again, footsteps bold and heavy, making their way toward her. Every hair on her body stood on end. Desperate, she turned, bringing the knife up to defend herself, but when she faced the sound, the hall was empty. Confusion settled like a frigid mist. Had she imagined it? Was her mind unraveling under the pressure of fear? Frightened little lamb, the voice teased again, smooth yet menacing. It came from somewhere beyond her line of sight. She felt a jolt of dread, her instinct screaming that the threat was nearer than she could perceive. As she glanced toward the kitchen door, it swung shut abruptly. A spike of terror surged through her, and the final remnants of calm shattered into a million pieces. Morgan backed away, heart racing, eyes darting, every nerve screaming for her to escape. The darkness wrapped around her, suffocating in its relentless embrace. A fight or flight moment loomed, yet she couldn't decide amidst the growing panic. Would she stand her ground, or flee into the unknown? With a shaky breath, she made her decision. "Show yourself," she shouted. "I won't be afraid anymore." Just then, the lights flickered, plunging her once more into shadow. The moment of truth hung in the air, thick and acrid. What awaited her in that murky darkness? Morgan knew fear better than she ever had, but what she didn't know was if courage would be enough to save her. The flickering lights died suddenly, plunging Morgan into darkness so complete that her own breath echoed unnervingly loud. Her hands trembled as she clutched the knife, each thump of her heart a roaring drum that threatened to drown out all other sound. Adrenaline coursed through her, sharp and electric, but with it came a paralyzing fear that gripped her throat. "Show yourself," she shouted again, the challenge ringing hollow and desperate in the silence. It felt like a dare tossed into the void. Then, a faint sound, a barely audible scrape against the floor. Morgan's muscles tightened as she instinctively crouched lower, her instincts kicking in hard. Was there something there, waiting patiently, feeding on her fear? A chilling giggle echoed through the shadows, sending shivers crawling up her spine. "Do you really think you can hide, little lamb?" The voice was seductive yet terrifying. It rolled through the dark with the smoothness of silk and the edge of a knife. Just then, a beam of light sliced through the blackness. A flashlight flicked on, illuminating a figure at the far end of the room. They stood half in the light, half obscured by the remaining shadows. The faint glow glinted off something metallic in their hand, a knife, mirroring her own. Morgan's breath hitched. The realization flooded in, this intruder was toying with her, just as she had feared. They didn't want to simply invade her space, they wanted to break her spirit. With her heart racing, she assessed her options. She had to think clearly, but all she could feel was the intoxicating swirl of terror and rage. "Why are you doing this?" Morgan forced out, trying to sound stronger than she felt. The figure stepped forward, the light revealing a face twisted into a cruel grin. "Because it's fun to watch you squirm." The amusement in their voice sent fresh bile churning in her stomach. Then, with a swift flick of their wrist, they extinguished the flashlight, throwing her back into the cold embrace of the dark. Panic surged anew, and Morgan's thoughts spiraled as she turned in circles, ears straining to catch any sound, any hint of where her tormentor was hiding. Suddenly, another loud crash shattered the silence, this time coming from the kitchen. Glass shattered against tile, the final stroke of madness that sent Morgan's heart plummeting into despair. She could either confront the monster or follow the noise and possibly find another escape route. Taking a deep breath, the metal of the knife bit into her palm, anchoring her resolve. She had wrestled with fear often enough, it was time to confront it head-on before the darkness swallowed her entirely. Taking a deep breath, she edged toward the kitchen, each footstep a battle between her urge to flee and the instinct to confront. As she entered the kitchen, the light remained woefully dim, but she could make out the fragments on the floor, tiny shards of what used to be her favorite dish yet again, but nothing else moved or breathed in the oppressive silence. Morgan felt the air shift behind her, and instinctively, she spun around. A presence loomed just behind her shoulder. Too close. Too real, and before she could react, a cold hand gripped her wrist, the knife nearly slipping from her fingers. She squirmed, adrenaline surging. "Let me go!" She screamed, the despair fueling her fight as she struggled for freedom. "Not until we play," the voice hissed ominously, dragging her deeper into the shadows, with panic threatening to consume her. Morgan's mind screamed for a way out. What had she gotten herself into? In that moment, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the blade of her knife, a haunted look staring back at her, fear mixed with defiance. The fight was still alive within her, she couldn't let this intruder strip that away. She decided then, as tears blurred her vision, that she wouldn't go quietly. "Let us play," she whispered, determination igniting within her, the words tasting of iron sharp, defiant. But what game were they playing? And who would emerge the victor when the darkness finally dissipated? The night was far from over. The storm had only just begun. Morgan felt her blood freeze as the grip on her wrist tightened. In the inky blackness, she could barely make out the contours of a face so close that she could feel the ghost of their breath upon her skin. It was as though shadows had taken form, and the entity before her was not of this world. "Let us play," the voice purred again, the malicious undertone sending a rush of renewed fear coursing through her. With adrenaline surging, she twisted her wrist violently, breaking free from the iron grip just long enough to bring the knife up defensively. "Stay back!" she shouted, her voice trembling but resolute. She couldn't let them drag her further into despair. The intruder laughed, a sound that cut through the air like a jagged blade. "Oh, you're feisty. I like that. This makes it even more thrilling." Then, like a shadow, they melted back into the dark labyrinth of the kitchen, leaving Morgan breathless and trembling, heart racing. She darted for the nearest exit, the back door she'd passed on her way in. Each step felt like a gamble, the air thick with the promise of danger. She could glimpse the outlines of furniture around her, haunting reminders of the quaint life she'd known before this nightmare gripped her. Suddenly, there was another crash, a loud echo from the pantry. Glass shattered anew, erupting into a symphony of chaos. Morgan turned, knife clutched tightly, prepared for an attack. "Where are you?" she yelled, her voice cracking under the pressure of her fear. It was futile, she knew, but she needed to occupy the nothingness, to fill it with a challenge. "I'm right here." The voice was much closer now, creeping along her spine like icy fingers. Morgan spun to face the sound, but the intruder remained hidden, a specter dancing just beyond her sight. The silence that followed was palpable, wrapping around her like a shroud. Desperate to take control, Morgan shouted, "What do you want from me?" A snicker erupted from the shadows. "You? Oh, sweetie, you've got this all wrong. This isn't about you at all, it's about the game. You see, I have a thirst for fun, and you are nothing but a beautiful player in my twisted little dance." For a moment, Morgan was paralyzed. The thought of being merely a pawn in this sadistic game twisted her insides. Rage bubbled to the surface, and she pushed through her fear as she lunged toward the pantry, knife raised. She had to fight, to take action. The moment she reached the edge of the counter, a body lunged at her from nowhere. The weight of a heavy mass crushed against her, forcing the knife from her grip. They crashed to the ground, and her heart sank as her weapon slid out of reach, clattering away. Gasping, Morgan felt the intruder straddle her, their breath hot against her face. "Game over?" they whispered teasingly. But she refused to concede. In the hearts of shadows, time faded, and she felt the pleadings of desperation rise within her, summoning the strength of every terrified moment she lived through the night. She pushed back, flipping the tables. With a sudden surge of will, Morgan threw the assailant off balance, rolling away to grab a kitchen chair. "I won to let you win." She spat, swinging the chair with fury, forcing the attacker back into the dark. The room erupted into chaos. Whatever twisted game had been set in motion struggled to maintain its balance, teetering at the edge of her resolve. The adrenaline burned through her veins as she swung again. With each crack of the chair against flesh, a desperate hope ignited within her, but as the dust settled, a flickering light pierced through the chaos. Morgan darted toward the doorway, heart racing, her mind racing, but the door swung shut abruptly, a barrier formed not by her hand but by her dark-minded stalker. "Where do you think you're going?" The voice wrapped around her like a noose, squeezing her resolve into tiny, frayed threads. In that moment, Morgan realized that perhaps this battle was only the beginning of something far more sinister. With determination flooding back into her every nerve, she pounded on the door. Desperation pulling her focus back with gravity. "Help! Someone help me!" What she didn't realize was that those cries might lead to something worse than the game itself. As she heard footsteps growing closer, she wondered who or what would answer her call for help. Was salvation on the horizon, or was it another cruel twist in the night's deadly design? Morgan's fists pounded against the door, panic twisting in her gut. Each blow echoed in the oppressive silence, mingling with her desperate pleas. "Please! Somebody!" It was a pitiful sound, shrill against the backdrop of the darkened kitchen. Footsteps grazed the floor, slow and methodical, sending a shiver down her spine. They halted just outside the door, and she held her breath, straining to listen. She could hear them breathing, a slow, deliberate rhythm that sent her heart racing even more. They were close, too close. Then, with a wrenching metallic clank, the door handle began to turn. Morgan's breath caught in her throat, fear paralyzing her for a brief moment. This was it. She was about to face whatever horror awaited her on the other side. The door swung open, revealing a figure cloaked in shadow. Morgan stumbled back, her mind racing. Was this the monster that had haunted her? Or was it someone else entirely, some twisted friend of her tormentor? "Help me," she whimpered, kneeling slightly, feeling small and vulnerable. She hoped against hope that this would be a savior, but they did not step forward. Instead, they lingered, dark but eerily still, like a statue carved from the night. "Help?" They echoed mockingly, and Morgan could sense the predatory gleam in their eyes, even shrouded by the dark. "But you see, that's not how this game works." Despair crashed over her as they floated into the room, closing the door behind them with a soft click, sealing her fate. Morgan braced herself against the kitchen counter, searching for something, anything to use as a weapon. But all that was within reach were the remnants of her shattered chair. "Why are you doing this?" She forced out, desperation lacing her voice. "What do you want?" Their eyes, now glinting dangerously under the warm light of the kitchen, narrowed. "Oh, sweet child. You misunderstand. The fun has only just begun. You'll see, it's not about what I want. It's about what you'll have to do to survive." Survive. The word hung in the air, thick and foreboding. Morgan's pulse pounded in her ears like a war drum. She could feel her fears taking form, writhing and squeezing at her chest, blinding her to the reality of the moment. She was caught, trapped in this nightmare with a predator who thrived on her misery. "Let's see just how far you'll go to escape," the intruder continued, their voice oozing with delight. Morgan's mind raced, seeking an escape route, a glimmer of hope. But all she could think was that leaving this kitchen felt like delivering herself into an even deeper darkness. "What if I play?" she suggested, holding up her hands defensively. "What kind of game?" The words trembled on her lips, though determination began to bloom within her, fighting against the paralyzing terror. The figure seemed to grin, mouth stretching wide in a grin that sent chills down her spine. A game of truth and consequence. Choose wisely, or suffer the cost. They stepped forward, dangerously close, their voice dropping to a whisper. Your secrets, they could save you. Secrets? Morgan's chest tightened. Could she truly bargain with them? The fragment of a plan flickered in her mind. Revelation seeped into her thoughts. She had always thought of survival as mere endurance. Now, it could be a strategy. But would she be able to confront her own darkness? Fine, she said, her voice steadier than her heart felt. Let us play. The atmosphere shifted. The intruder's eyes lit up like flames, glimmering with expectation. Great choice, darling. Let us uncover those fears together. But as the tension mounted, Morgan wondered whether she was stepping into a web from which she could never escape. Could she reveal enough to keep them at bay, or would exposing her truths only unleash another level of horror? Just beyond the door, she heard a muffled voice calling her name. It was faint but familiar. Was this a rescue or merely another twist in the twisted game unfolding? Helplessly, she glanced back. Was there still time to regain her footing in this battle of wits, or was she jumping from one nightmare into an even deeper abyss? The revelations were just beginning. Morgan's heart thudded in her chest, drowning out the faint voice echoing through her mind. Panic wrapped its cold fingers around her throat as the figures stepped closer, their presence swallowing the kitchen in darkness. Her eyes darted around, searching desperately for a way out, some tool to arm herself. But there was nothing, just remnants of broken furniture and the weight of impending doom. Let us start simple, shall we? The intruder's voice dripped with a playful malice that made her skin crawl. What's your deepest fear, Morgan? Reveal that, and perhaps I'll let you walk away for a time. Terror surged through her as the question hung in the air. Her deepest fear? She thought of spiders, dark places, betrayal. But what truly sank in was the suffocating notion of silence, of being utterly, completely alone. She hesitated, weighing her words. I fear being forgotten, she finally admitted, her voice almost a whisper. The chill that filled the room was palpable. She didn't want to show weakness, yet something inside urged her to be true. The intruder cocked their head, intrigued. Ah, a classic. But the game isn't about your fears alone, dear. It's time for truth and my favorite consequence. Before she could comprehend, they lunged forward, seizing her wrist, and dragged her toward the kitchen table. The force knocked the breath from her lungs. The laughter that followed was dark and wild, like a storm brewing. Time to test your resolve. I'll ask questions, and you'll answer. But for every secret you withhold, the consequences will grow, shall we say, dire? Their grip tightened sharply, and Morgan winced. Start simple, then. Who do you love most in this world? Her mind raced. The last thing she wanted was to share feelings, to expose herself even more. But if she didn't comply, she could only imagine what dark fate awaited her. My brother, she stammered, her breath hitching at the thought of him. The figure smirked. Let us test that love. If you protect him, we'll just see how loyal you really are. Next question, what's your greatest regret? The weight of her past flooded over her. She thought of the anguish and guilt, an embarrassment she never wanted to face again. I didn't help my friend when she needed me. Interesting choice of words, they purred. You let her suffer alone. And now, you're standing at the edge of your own suffering. Isn't it poetic? As the tension crackled in the air, Morgan inhaled sharply. Her thoughts flashed back to her friend's betrayal alongside her own failures, igniting a fire of determination. If she was to escape this nightmare, she'd have to turn this game against them. Enough, she said, standing taller, defiance rising in her chest. You wanted secrets? Here's one. I know where you're hiding, where it all started. The figure's expression blanked, surprise replacing their sickening delight. What do you mean? If you think you can toy with me without paying a price, you're wrong. It's not just my secrets at stake. Yours, too. The pulse of her heart raced as she spoke, adrenaline drowning out fear. The intruder paused, processing her words. Interesting play. But remember, every game has stakes. Just then, another voice echoed from beyond the door. It was louder this time. Morgan. Are you in there? Her heart leaped. Was it truly help, or was it a cruel trick? She turned toward the sound, torn between a chance at freedom versus the unpredictable fate of the game. The figure's eyes flashed with fury. You think your little rescue will save you? How naive. As they circled around her, Morgan felt her resolve swelling. If this game was about truths, she'd turn the tide. But in that moment of hope, an unsettling foreboding wove itself through her thoughts. Would this voice lead her to salvation or further plunge her into despair? With the stakes rising and decisions looming, Morgan steeled herself. She had to figure out how to use this moment to her advantage, to unravel the intruder's dark game where secrets could mean the difference between life and death. Could she outsmart the predator and save herself from the darkness? Or was this twisted game just the beginning of an insurmountable nightmare? The tension mounted as the door shook under unseen hands, threatening to burst open and consume her whole. The door rattled violently, and Morgan's breath hitched in her throat. Please, just go away. She yelled, her voice echoing off the kitchen walls. The figure hesitated, but only for a moment. You think crying out will save you? They laughed, their amusement sharp enough to cut through her fear. What if I told you that voice belongs to someone far from your reach? Morgan's mind raced. Was it her brother? Had he come looking for her? Or was it a cruel trick, designed to keep her trapped in this horrific game? The figure eyed her with a predatory interest, sensing her internal struggle. Morgan, the voice from outside called again. I'm coming in. An overwhelming urge to flee surged through her. Morgan bolted toward the door, but the intruder lunged, grabbing her arm and spinning her back around. Their grip was like iron, unyielding and cold. They chided mockingly. You can't escape that easily. This is your chance to play. You want to save someone? Tell me more of your secrets. Or let us find out how much love can bear. Let him in. She shouted, spitting the words in defiance. Let him see you. You're nothing but a coward. The grin on the intruder's face widened, satisfaction lighting up their features. Such bold words. But perhaps I can show you just how cowardly love can be. As if on cue, the door crashed open, slamming against the wall with a loud bang. Light flooded the room, illuminating the figure for the first time. Morgan's heart sank at the sight. The darkness remained intact, accentuating the twisted features and madness swirling in the intruder's eyes. Standing in the doorway was her brother, confusion and fear etched on his face. Morgan! Get away from them! He yelled. Before she could respond, the intruder laughed, releasing her wrist. What a delightful little setup we have here. A family reunion, perhaps? But dear brother, I'm afraid you've come at just the wrong time. In a heartbeat, the tension escalated. Morgan's brother stepped fully into the room, but the intruder was quicker. With a swift motion, they reached for a knife, glinting ominously in the light. No! Morgan screamed, her heart racing as she lunged forward, trying to put herself between the two. Stop! Her brother shouted, hands raised, signaling his intention to calm the chaos. I'm not here to fight. But the figure reveled in the turmoil, brandishing the knife as if it were a toy. What's it going to be, Morgan? Show your loyalty to your darling brother or risk losing everything? I wonder how far you'll go to save him. Her mind churned. Every instinct screamed to protect her brother, but was that worth risking her own life? Her pulse thudded loudly in her ears, drowning out the confusion swelling in the room. Answer me, Morgan. The intruder barked, eyes gleaming with anticipation. What will you sacrifice? What are you willing to lose? She felt the walls closing in, the weight of the decision heavy upon her chest. Would revealing another secret grant her and her brother a chance? Or did that only tighten the noose around them both? Morgan stammered, panic gnawing at her resolve. The room pulsed with tension, the blade glinting dangerously. She could hear her brother's breathing steadying, sensing her turmoil. And then a thought struck her. You want a secret? She spat with newfound courage. Here's one, I know who you really are. I know where you've been. The intruder flinched, their eyes narrowing. She could almost see the gears turning behind that sinister smile. Interesting, they said slowly, tilting their head. And how do you think that plays into our little game? The stakes had just risen once more, and Morgan felt the fear transforming into a steely determination. Remember, every player has their flaws, she replied, the adrenaline surging in her veins. And every secret can become a weapon. The intruder smiled defiantly. Then let us see how this secret unfolds. What came next would determine everything. Would she and her brother escape unscathed or push the intruder over the edge? Time raced against her as the climax of this twisted game approached one that would reveal more than just their fears. Would Morgan be able to confront the darkness, or would she be swallowed whole? As she steadied her breath, a chilling question lingered in the air. Would the truth bring freedom or unleash a nightmare beyond imagining? The silence hung heavy in the air, thickening with each tick of the clock. Morgan's heart hammered in her chest, a relentless reminder of the peril they faced. She exchanged a glance with her brother, searching for reassurance, for strength, but all she saw was fear mirrored back at her. Come on, Morgan, her brother urged, taking a step closer, his eyes flicking warily between her and the intruder. We need to get out of here. But the figure chuckled darkly, twirling the knife in their hand as if it were a baton in a twisted performance. And spoil all the fun? Where's the thrill in that? Secrets make this game so much sweeter. Morgan felt the sweat trickle down her spine. The moment felt like an eternity, and she knew she had to act. What do you want? She asked, voice steadier than she felt, trying to buy time. Is it revenge? Do you want me to suffer? Oh, sweet Morgan, the intruder cooed, a malevolent grin splitting their face. I want an audience. I want to see what you will do when it's your loved one on the line. That's the real entertainment. Her stomach twisted at the thought of what lay ahead. If you think I'll betray my brother, no, they interrupted, waving the knife dismissively. You misunderstand. I don't want betrayal. I want loyalty, but loyalty comes at a cost. A chill swept through Morgan. What could they possibly want from her? You want me to spill more secrets? I'm not afraid of you. The intruder's eyes narrowed, calculating. Ah, but you are, aren't you? Your voice shakes. The way you clench your fists betrays you. Let us talk about fear, shall we? Suddenly, they lunged forward, closing the distance, brandishing the knife with a feral delight. Morgan's instincts kicked in, and she pushed her brother back, narrowly avoiding the glinting blade as it sliced through the air where they had just stood. Get away! She yelled, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The room erupted into chaos as she and her brother scrambled back, hearts racing, breaths shallow. Is this what you want? Her brother shouted, his eyes wide with desperation. Just tell us how to make this stop. The figure tilted their head, intrigue evident in their expression. And now we've introduced desperation to the mix. Delicious. A cocktail of emotions. Let us turn up the heat. Morgan's mind raced. She had no more secrets to give, no more lies to tell. She glanced at her brother, a wave of guilt crashing over her. This was all because of them, all because of the life they shared. But did that bond have limits? Please, she breathed softly. We can work together. Just let him go. The intruder leaned in, malicious delight dancing in their eyes. Ah, but that would ruin everything, wouldn't it? Love is only love when it has something to measure against. We need context. Context, Morgan muttered, her heart pounding. What if I told you a bigger secret? Something that could change everything? The figure froze, intrigued. I'm listening. Morgan swallowed hard, the words teetering on the edge of her tongue. Her brother's eyes widened. Morgan, don't. But the path ahead shimmered with a twisted promise. Could this be the chance to turn the game in their favor? With their lives on the line and the pressure mounting, the risk was colossal. Would revealing more finally shatter the intruder's grip, or would it be the fatal mistake that sealed their fates? As adrenaline flooded her system, one question spiraled through her mind: what would it cost her to save them both? Would the price be too much to bear? The figure smiled wider, eyes glinting. What's your secret, Morgan? Let us hear it. The air crackled with anticipation, and as Morgan took a breath, the world around them held still in a pregnant pause, teetering on the brink of revelation. But would that revelation lead them to salvation, or into an even deeper abyss? Morgan stood there, the weight of the decision pressing down heavily on her. Her brother's eyes were full of alarm, but it was the intruder's gaze that held the most power, dark, insatiable, and shimmering with twisted amusement. Every heartbeat echoed like a drum, drumming out the gravity of her predicament. Okay, she said, voice trembling yet fierce. I'll play your game. But you have to promise to let my brother go if I do. Oh, sweet Morgan, the figure teased, a smile spreading across their face like a shadow engulfing the light. That's not how this works. But I do admire the sacrifice you're willing to make. It'll make this even more entertaining. Let him go now. She shouted, her voice sharper than glass breaking. Or I swear I'll. Or you'll what? The intruder interrupted, stepping toward her. The knife glinted in the harsh light, an omen of threat, and she instinctively took a step back, her mind racing for a way out of this mess. The air felt electric, the tension crackling like a storm. Believe me, there is little else exciting than watching someone squirm under pressure. But let us end the pleasantries. What's your secret? Breath hitched in her throat. Could this one truth alter everything? Would they let her brother leave, or would it just deepen the intruder's delight? Fine, she said, gripping her brother's hand tighter. I've always been afraid of being alone. But more than that, I've been scared of disappointing those I love. The figure paused, eyes narrowing. Had she hit a nerve? Oh. How quaint. But failing to live up to expectations is hardly a dramatic reveal, Morgan. I expected much more. I'm not done. She shouted, shaking with anger and fear. I harbor this dark secret about a choice I made a long time ago. I had a chance to save someone close to me, but I didn't have the courage to act. The emotion wrapped around her confession like a choking vine. Her brother squeezed her hand, eyes wide with realization. He understood, this wasn't just a game anymore. It was a glimpse into Morgan's heart, her humanity. It was raw, tender. Oh, that's delicious. The intruder crooned, eyes sparkling with glee. Such a tantalizing revelation. But what's the consequence of your secret? Who do you believe in, and who will you save? Just then, the door was kicked open again. 2 police officers flooded the room, their shouts echoing through the kitchen. NYPD. Drop your weapon. The presence of authority bounced off the walls, lighting bursts of hope in Morgan's chest like fireworks in the night sky, but the intruder only laughed, a sound so manic it set Morgan's teeth on edge. Ah, just in time. Let us add a twist. You could run, but we both know they can't save you. No. She yelled, her voice breaking, panic rising. Do what you want to me, just let my brother go. Bravery is contagious, but also futile, the intruder taunted, a glint of danger flashing in their eyes. "Let us see if you have what it takes to save someone you love." Before the officers could react, the figure lunged toward Morgan. Instinct kicked in. She surged forward, grabbing a broken chair leg as a makeshift weapon. In a single heartbeat, she swung it, connecting hard with the intruder's arm, and the knife clattered to the ground. For a heartbeat, everything froze. The intruder stumbled back, glaring at her, fury igniting in their eyes. "You foolish girl." The police shouted commands, rushing past her toward the chaos. Her brother moved behind Morgan, and there was a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, this could end. "You saw my fear. Now face yours." Morgan shouted, feeling strength coursing through her, roaring louder than any fear. Suddenly, the intruder turned, charging toward the nearest officer in a frenzy, planting chaos amid authority. But Morgan's heart raced. She'd already stood up once. It was time to save her brother. "Run, now!" Morgan yelled to her brother. As he dashed for the doorway, the officers wrestled the intruder, struggling to subdue the violent whirlwind. Morgan hesitated only for a second, then sprinted after her brother. They burst into the safety of the night, the cool air hitting Morgan like a bomb. The loud shouts and commotion behind them churned into distant echoes as they found their feet on the ground outside. In that moment, they were free but needed healing. "I'm so proud of you," her brother breathed heavily, pulling her into a fierce embrace that felt like safety wrapped around her like a shield. "You did it, Morgan." The shadows in that apartment faded away, yet the scars of fear would always stay. With the police tightening their grasp on the intruder, Morgan and her brother turned away from the chaos and looked toward the horizon, a dim dawn beginning to break. The dark night had tested her like nothing before, but resilience thrummed in her veins, reminding her of her strength. As colors bled into the sky, Morgan finally felt light begin to seep back into her soul. The journey ahead would be shadowed with fear, but she knew she could face whatever came next. Home was no longer a prison, it would be a sanctuary, for those who dare to go beyond fear. Take action now. You need to subscribe immediately to this channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. It matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Join this adventure and help us build this community together.